Hello guys and welcome to my chapter review for chapter 273 of Tokyo Revengers. And the title for chapter 273 is called, Carry On. Before I start this video, I want to tell you guys that season 2 of Tokyo Revengers will be released in exactly 79 days. However, despite this, we still have not gotten a trailer yet. And we know that the Tokyo Revengers manga is ending very soon, however there are still many things that are left unanswered. I really want the story to end with no plot holes, so I hope everything gets explained properly before the end of the story. In this chapter we get to see many important moments take place, and we also learn a lot more about time leaping. And in this chapter we also learn how Takemichi first got his time leaping powers, and we learn that Shinichiro is actually the person who gave Takemichi his time leaping powers. In this chapter we see Shinichiro save Takemichi from some bullies, and then Shinichiro shook hands with Takemichi. And this resulted in Shinichiro's time leaping powers being transferred to Takemichi. And this moment is actually a direct parallel to the scene where Takemichi saves Naoto from the bullies, and we saw this in episode 1 of the anime. And this happened when Naoto was just a small child. Takemichi and Shinichiro both saw a child getting ganged up on by bullies, and they both decided to help the small child. And this scene shows the parallels between these two characters, and they both decided to use their strength to save a helpless child. We have actually seen this moment twice in the story. The first time was from Hinata's perspective, and the second time was from Kasaki's perspective. However, we never actually knew how important this moment is, and this is the most important moment in the entire story. Not only is this the day where Hinata fell in love with Takemichi, but it is also the day that Takemichi got his time leaping powers. And this is also the day when Kasaki started to hate Takemichi, because Kasaki watched Hinata fall in love with Takemichi. And this means that this is the day where Kasaki's rivalry with Takemichi first started. And this is also the reason why Kasaki always calls Takemichi a hero, because on this day he watched Takemichi play the role of the hero, and he saw Takemichi save Hinata from the bullies. Ever since that day Kasaki sees Takemichi as a hero, and whenever he encounters Takemichi, he always calls him a hero. And Takemichi always wanted to be a hero, so he accepted the role of the hero as his identity. And before fighting against Tenjuku, Takemichi tells Hinata that he will protect her, because heroes don't run away. And Takemichi is also a hero in Mikey's eyes, and after Takemichi told Mikey about his time leaping, Mikey said that Takemichi is his hero. And Takemichi proved that he deserved the title of Mikey's hero when he saved Mikey from committing suicide, and that is what brought us to the current timeline. When Shinichiro, these are some thoughts that I wanted to share, and now I will start by talking about everything that happened in this chapter, and this chapter starts off right where the last chapter ended. And after arriving in the future, Shinichiro immediately sees Mikey, and Mikey just arrived at Shinichiro's bike shop, and Mikey is riding on his motorcycle. And Mikey asked Shinichiro if he could fix his bike. Baji risked his life to protect Mikey's bike, and he got beaten up by a whole gang of delinquents just to protect Mikey's bike. But Mikey purposely broke his bike, because he was angry at the gang for hurting Baji. Shinichiro was still disoriented because he just arrived in the future, and he was very shocked to see Mikey right before his eyes. And then Shinichiro got extremely emotional, and he started crying his eyes out. Shinichiro asked Mikey what is his age, and Shinichiro can't believe that Mikey has gotten so big. Just a couple days ago, Mikey was all his family more than anything else, and after Mikey died, Shinichiro had a mental breakdown. Mikey was confused by Shinichiro's behavior, and he asked Shinichiro if he is okay. But Shinichiro could not control his emotions, and he fell to his knees and he kept breaking down into tears. While he is crying, Shinichiro thinks to himself that Akamaru and Sanzu leave the bike shop, and they go to talk at a restaurant. And Sanzu reveals that he still has two different memories. Just a day ago, Sanzu was at Shinichiro's funeral, but then suddenly he teleported back to his house, and when he was at his house, a new memory of the past suddenly appeared. Sanzu remembers Mikey's death in the original timeline, and he also remembers when Shinichiro committed suicide right before his eyes. Sanzu is very confused by his conflicting memories, and he has no idea what is going on anymore. Sanzu's mental health has been greatly affected by his new memories, and he is still in shock that his memories do not match up with the current timeline. And this same thing happened to Naoto after Takemichi traveled back to the future, so it makes sense that Sanzu still has memories from the original timeline. And this is probably the reason why Sanzu isn't a founding member of Toman, because he was still mentally unavailable because of his new memories. And then Shinichiro tells Sanzu about his time-leaping power, and he explains that he traveled back in time to save Mikey. In this chapter, Shinichiro even told Sanzu about how he murdered the homeless man, and he also trusted Sanzu with the secret of how he acquired his time-leaping powers. Sanzu is the very first person that Shinichiro told about these two secrets, and this just shows how much Shinichiro trusts Sanzu. Sanzu is relieved after hearing Shinichiro's explanation, and he is glad that he figured out the reason for his new memories. And Sanzu promises to Shinichiro that he will keep his secret. Sanzu knows that nobody will believe their story anyway, and he waves goodbye to Shinichiro. In this chapter, Sanzu called Shinichiro Nisan, and in Japanese this translates to older brother. I think Sanzu sees Shinichiro as his older brother, and he trusts Shinichiro more than his own family. We know that Takeomi treated Sanzu horribly, and he always got mad at Sanzu for no reason. And because of this, Sanzu eventually decided to run away from home, and he even changed his family name, and he changed his name to Sanzu Haruchiyo. Since Shinichiro treated Sanzu better than his older brother, I think that Sanzu sees Shinichiro as a brotherly figure, and he trusts Shinichiro more than his own family. After joining the 5th Division, Sanzu even said that he always wanted an older brother, and he could be referring to Shinichiro. We see that Shinichiro would spend time with Sanzu, and Sanzu is the very first person that Shinichiro trusted with his secrets. And even in the original timeline, Shinichiro picked up Sanzu from jail when Takeomi wouldn't even speak to him, and Shinichiro also defended Sanzu from Baji when Baji called Sanzu crazy. It is obvious that Sanzu sees Shinichiro as his older brother, but I also think that Shinichiro sees Sanzu as his own little brother. We know that Shinichiro has taken care of many orphans, and he has been a role model for many children. After Inupi's family died in a house fire, Inupi would always spend time at Shinichiro's bike shop, and he would look up to Shinichiro as a role model. And after Izana got sent to an orphanage by his mother, Shinichiro became Izana's older brother, and he even taught Izana many valuable life skills. And Shinichiro cares very much for his younger siblings, and after their parents died, Shinichiro is the person who raised Mikey and Emma. Sanzu and Shinichiro have a very strong bond, and after running away from home, I think Sanzu sees Shinichiro as his own family member. I think that the reason why Sanzu became crazy in the current timeline could be because of Shinichiro's death, and I think that Shinichiro's death could be what destroyed his mental health. While Shinichiro is walking back to the bike shop, he thinks to himself that he doesn't need this power anymore, and Shinichiro suddenly hears someone causing a commotion. And this is the scene where Takemichi saves Hinata from the bullies. 3 older kids were bullying a little girl, and Takemichi tried to jump in and stop them. Upon his arrival, Takemichi declares that the hero has arrived. And Takemichi says that he will save the girl from getting bullied. However, Takemichi was easily overpowered by the older kids, and all 3 of them are stomping on Takemichi all at once. While he is getting jumped, Takemichi says that they are fighting unfairly, and he asks them to fight him one-on-one. And this is when Shinichiro decided to step in to stop the bullies, and Shinichiro tells them to knock it off already. Shinichiro punched a hole in a light post, and this scared off the bullies, and they ran away. Shinichiro approaches Takemichi to see if he is okay, and Takemichi asks Shinichiro how he can become as strong as him. Takemichi starts crying, and then he says that he wants to become like Shinichiro, and he wants to become a real hero. When Shinichiro hears Takemichi's words, he thinks of the homeless man that he killed, and he remembers that the homeless man offered to give him the time-leaping power. Shinichiro thinks about Takemichi's words about him being a hero, and this makes him think of the murder that he committed. Shinichiro encourages Takemichi and reassures him that one day he will definitely become strong. Shinichiro offers his hand to Takemichi, and he tells him that when all else fails, he can use this power if there is someone he wants to protect. And in this moment, Shinichiro decided to transfer his time-leaping powers to Takemichi. Shinichiro knows that he is not a real hero, but he wants this power to be in good hands, and he sees Takemichi as a real hero. Shinichiro realizes that he should have just asked the homeless man for the power, instead of killing him, and then he says goodbye to Takemichi. Shinichiro says that he is certain that Takemichi will be able to handle this power, and he thinks that he is someone who is worthy enough to inherit this ability. We also see Kisaki's and Hinata's reaction to seeing Shinichiro. We see that Hinata is still crying, and Kisaki is watching from afar. In this chapter, Shinichiro realized that his mistake was killing the homeless man, and we already know that the punishment for this sin is his death. I think that Hanma's tattoos represent time leaping, and I think that the sin tattoo represents changing the past, and the punishment tattoo represents the consequences for changing the future. Because every time that the past is changed, someone else dies instead. When Takemichi saves Naoto, Izana and Kisaki died instead. And when Takemichi saved Senju, Draken is the one who died instead of Senju. And when Kikucho saved everyone from the train, Kikucho is the one who died instead. And when Shinichiro saved Mikey, Shinichiro is the one who died instead. I believe the sin tattoo represents changing the past, and the punishment tattoo represents the consequences as a result of the past being changed. And I think that this is the reason why the homeless man called time leaping a curse, and I also think that the homeless man purposely gave Shinichiro the time leaping powers. The curse is also the dark impulses that got passed on to Mikey, and the dark impulses represents Shinichiro's pain that will be passed on to Mikey. We see that when Shinichiro time leaped for the first time, his dark impulses instantly disappeared, and it is possible that they just got transferred to Mikey. And that is why after the death of Shinichiro, Mikey is in the same exact position that Shinichiro was in when Mikey died. And this pain that Shinichiro passed on to Mikey physically manifests as his dark impulses. The chapter then switches to the current timeline, and we get to see everyone's reaction when they find out that Shinichiro gave Takemichi his time-leaping power. Wakasa says that it is just like Shinichiro told him, he protected an unknown boy with the power of time. Mikey still has a stoic reaction, and Mikey says, I guess it is just cause and effect. Takemichi was shocked to hear that he actually met Shinichiro, and that Shinichiro is actually the reason why he was able to save Hinata. He thinks that all of them are connected, Kisaki and Hinata, they all met Shinichiro a long time ago. Takemichi thinks to himself that they are all connected by fate, and he realizes that everything started on that day. And that day was the beginning of Takemichi's story. And in the final page of this chapter, we see Shinichiro, Takemichi, Kisaki, and Hinata, and they are all standing together. And we know that if this day never happened, then the story of Tokyo Revengers never would have started, and Takemichi would be dead right now. Shinichiro actually saved Takemichi's life, because if it wasn't for Shinichiro, Takemichi would have been hit by the train. Shinichiro saved Takemichi's life by giving him the time-leaping powers, and now Takemichi is trying to save Mikey. Anyway guys, that was it for my chapter review of chapter 273 of Tokyo Revengers. Also let me know what you guys think of the chapter in the comments below. And like, comment and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one, and thank you for watching.